Hello everyone. Oftentimes we see enemies as people we need to constantly be at odds with, or people we must defeat with our own strength. However, the Bible has shown us otherwise. In this video, I'm going to talk about your enemies and how God uses them to bless and elevate you. In Genesis, after Joseph told his brothers his dream of the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowing to him, they sold him into slavery to the Ishmaelite traders, who then sold him into Egypt. He would serve under an Egyptian named Potiphar, who would give him a lot of responsibility in his house. Unfortunately, Potiphar's wife lusted after Joseph. However, he rejected her many times, until she falsely accused him of trying to assault her. Joseph was then thrown into prison for many years, until he was able to interpret Pharaoh's dream. He was then placed second in command over Egypt. Joseph's brothers would eventually have to come to Egypt because of the famine in the land to get rations. They would later find out Joseph was in his high position, and they would eventually have to apologize for what they did to him. Joseph realized what they intended for evil, God used for good. There was also David, who was anointed to be king by the prophet at a young age. However, he would have to serve under King Saul, who was tormented by an evil spirit at the time. David would play an instrument for him, and the spirit would go away. David also killed Goliath, and Saul grew jealous of the praises that David received, and set out to kill him. However, God was with David the entire time, and eventually Saul met his demise, and David became king. You see, God uses your enemies to bless you, most of the time right in front of them. Psalm 23 verse 5 says, "You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies." Some people are just going to hate you, even when you've done them no wrong. They will come up with a reason in their heads why they don't like you. But oftentimes, Satan is using them to try to cause you to stumble. They're being used to cause adversity in your life. But if you cling to Jesus and God the Father, you will prevail. I once had a job where I got a new boss within my first few months of working there, and he would constantly micromanage me and belittle me. But I just kept my cool and never went off or said anything disrespectful to him. Well, one day he finally fired me, and I was relieved. Because for one, it was a very long drive to get to that job, and it didn't pay that much. And lo and behold, 4 months later, I was blessed with a better paying job. It was a senior level role and closer to home. You see, God used that boss and that adversity to strengthen me and bless me in the long run. And because I was faithful with little, he gave me much. And what's interesting is, I had a friend that used to work at the old job tell me that the manager that fired me had asked about me. And he told him I was thriving in my new position. And oftentimes that's how God works. He allows adversity to strengthen us, then he will bless us later. You see, in Deuteronomy 28, it says, "The Lord will cause the enemies who rise up against you to be defeated before you. They will march out against you from one direction, but flee from you in 7 directions." So if you're struggling with someone or multiple people that dislike you, just stay patient, and God will sort it out. And here are some verses for encouragement. Matthew chapter 5, verse 43 to 44 says, and this is Jesus speaking, "You have heard it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven." Romans chapter 12, verse 14 says, "Bless those who persecute you, and bless and do not curse." So like I said, be patient and let God sort it out. Thank you for watching. God bless.